In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I got a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Alex Howe, and he's heading over from the folks over at Funnel. And at Funnel, they're having basically a renter-centric solution that is basically, driving the experience much more enjoyable, much more easier, and actually way more efficient. Purposefully, we're not talking about property management here. We're talking about renter management software. So let's look into that today and what that new category has in store. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So maybe give people like a quick overview, right? I just gave it a high level sort of teaser, but what is Funnel all about in your own words?
Sure. So we're in the multifamily space, which is a vertical under commercial real estate that deals with apartment rentals at scale. There is a number of technology companies out there that cater to that industry. We're specifically focused on the renter journey piece of it, the leasing entire journey from start to finish. And then once they become a resident, keeping them in your portfolio and having them renew with you. So we have a platform that has 4 products today, more in the future, that speak to each part of that journey. And we came about really because the existing technology predominantly focuses on and was started with the properties in mind. It's really great accounting and back-end ledger systems that every company still needs as well. But the renter journey, the expectations as consumers we all have has really changed, particularly in the last few years. And COVID, of course, exacerbated a lot of those needs and challenges. But our platform exists, again, just to serve renters and the leasing teams that provide services toward them and trying to encourage them to rent properties in your portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, how would you describe like a typical customer using the platform? What's typical characteristics of those?
They tend to be a little bit more of a forward thinker, leaders in the space. We've been really fortunate to have some of the largest companies in the country and frankly the world, because America's got this very unique ecosystem of multifamily providers that doesn't really exist at scale in other countries. But they recognize, our customers that is, tend to recognize the operating model that many of them have been using for decades isn't relevant anymore. And it's actually costing them money, it's less efficient, and it's going to drive their customers, renters, away because it doesn't give them answers when they need them at all times. It doesn't quickly allow them to verify their income by logging into their bank. They instead have to dig up W-2s or pay stubs. There's just a lot of pieces of renting an apartment that pretty much anyone you ask on the street, if they enjoyed that process, they'll typically give you a pretty bad answer. Mm-hmm. We're helping to change that, right? We think that the people are those who are going to win customers, much like Airbnb, Amazon, and others. They make it easier for you. They make recommendations. They kind of bring the experience and meet you where you're at. And so we're doing that for the multifamily space.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good. Cool. Now, how do people learn about Funnel? Like, what's sort of their journey looking like? Like, what's the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
Largely, look, I'll say our industry is not big in terms of the total addressable market we serve specifically. We tend to work with larger operators. So those are folks with 4,000 or more units in their portfolio. And because of that, there's a limited number of companies that we're focused on. They hear about us either through word of mouth, tends to be a really great referral for us because we have some customers that sing our praises very often when we very much appreciate that. And others kind of see what they're doing and what our technology has allowed them to do. It's not just a better mousetrap. It's actually a very different way to organize your business and the departments within them that you can't get because of some challenges other technologies have in our space. So word of mouth, industry conferences, we have a lot of really great inbound qualified leads that come through our website requesting demos. And what we're very focused on is trying to provide even more information and education to them in that journey, because we all know, as we do ourselves, we're doing the research on our own, right? We're not necessarily just picking up the phone or clicking a request a demo button to jump on with someone. It's spending the time to really learn about something as big of a change as a new CRM and a virtual leasing agent and online leasing and all these other tools that we provide. It's not a fluke or a kind of short-sighted decision you make when you make something a decision that big. So we're trying to give them as many tools as they possibly can before they get on the phone with one of our sales reps.
Makes a lot of sense. I was actually just about to ask then, sort of what role do you attribute to the website in that buyer's journey? Like, how do you think about sort of the job that it takes in that journey?
I think for anyone, your website is your best salesperson, right? It's your number one sales rep. It's on all the time, and it has the ability to do great things for you or to lose a lot of potential revenue for your company. So we definitely think about our website a lot. We're in the process of revamping it again as of kind of the last month. And it's something that we do pretty consistently every 6 months. We really look at it closely and see if things have changed. And they do. I mean, how we think about the role we play, the trends we see affecting our space, macroeconomic factors. Currently, we're in a very inflationary period, right? And there's a lot of concern in the market. So you've got to react to that and meet folks where they are in terms of how they're thinking about technology they may want to bring on. So I think the website is paramount. I think we are always trying to move toward that fully self-service buying journey that everyone wants. And we'll get there one day, but we're taking steps as we can now to move toward that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, is there anything that you've learned as a marketer over the years, when it comes to driving, those conversions, those demo requests from the page, any sort of methods, approaches, way of thinking, maybe tools that you feel are helpful in that regard?
I think it's probably a little different depending on if you're in more of an e-commerce, very transactional type business, or a much longer sales cycle B2B enterprise space, which I am at the moment and where I've been. So my advice, I think, is more specific to where I sit today, right? It's not across the board, but the folks with the best stories and that can speak obsessively about why this matters to their customers are going to win, period. I mean, that is pretty broad. I would apply that almost to any of those other industries and verticals I mentioned before, but it is, in my case, a very complex platform that has such sophisticated technology behind it that it really does take very thoughtful positioning, messaging, and the right case studies, stories of how customers are actually getting great value out of it to make a difference. So we spend a lot of time trying to provide relevant information to people and valuable information, right? I mean, they're often coming to our website because of some of the value we are trying to put out into the market without asking for anything in return. I definitely am of the mindset that you should not gate things. You should try to put it out there, build it, and they will come, right? I mean, you can't force somebody to buy anything. So provide as much value as you can through email campaigns, through ABM, very kind of targeted approach, and they'll come to the website, right? Whether they stay or not is really up to them. So I'm optimistic in putting our value out and letting folks get to it. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to educate them on the way, but it's a big buying decision in our world, and it takes some time, but I'm pretty happy with how we're approaching it.
Very, very good. Cool. So I would say let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your journey as a marketer, right? So there is so much content out there for marketers to learn from and educate yourself from. So could you give me an idea? Where do you personally find good quality resources? Like where do you study? Like, with all the noise out there, where do you find good insights?
Podcasts are great. Podcasts are obviously a nice boiled down synopsis of someone's approach to a challenge or their story. So I listen to a lot of them, both inside my own industry and outside, because I like to say B2B buyers are just B2C consumers with somebody else's credit card, right? Like we don't make a buying decision that drastically differently than we would for ourselves. Maybe there's a department or committee that's involved in that decision, but you're still advocating for it. You still want the thing. So I look to e-commerce, I look to other verticals to get tactics and approaches to what we're doing. I think there's a lot of smart people right now in the world talking about how to find more qualified folks more effectively, moving away from a lot of the paid efforts. I don't think many people these days click on banner ads at all. I don't think search and Google traffic is bringing you a lot of the right leads, especially in more of an enterprise B2B space. So going back to what I said about the best story wins the day, having content that resonates with people and just being so obsessed with what that prospective customer is thinking about, cares about for when they come to your website is going to be what gets you the right people, right? It's not, can I spend a bunch of money on ads or a crazy experiential thing that might for a moment be a way to strike through. You consistently just have to tell the story over and over and prove that you built something for your customers, not just, hey, I want to tell you how great my product is, right? It's more about them.
Very cool. And for the very last question, I'd like to do a little bit of time travel, right? Let's go back to the days of University of Virginia. And so if you're heading out of formal education into the world of, business and marketing and growth, what's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Probably be less afraid to fail early on. I think like everyone else, you learn how to approach marketing or communications or business. And you're kind of taught these rules or these tenets of it, and you try those out early on, right? Some of them work, sometimes they don't. You start to experiment a little bit and you realize maybe some of them don't work, or there's a better way to do it, or they're totally wrong and you have to do the opposite. I think it takes us all a few years to like feel comfortable enough to think outside the box. And I think now is a moment in time where traditional advertising marketing doesn't really work. It doesn't get through. There's just too much competing for our attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the folks that are gonna early on in their careers impress upon people how smart they are and how effective they are gonna have to think way outside the box and kind of throw away what they're taught lessons of marketing. So I would be even bolder earlier. I think it took me a few years to start to feel comfortable enough to think outside the box. And I think thinking outside the box is the only way that you can really get ahead, especially earlier in your career. So I would tell people to be crazy and wild. And thankfully, it's a pretty strong labor market. So if that person that you try that with doesn't agree with the approach and you're not a good fit for them, find someone else who is, right? There's a lot of companies competing for a smaller amount of space, and don't play it safe.
Very good. Alex, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathing Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about funnel today, what's the one single thing that people should remember?
That it's not just about building something better, it's about building something different. And Funnel is certainly that company. We are really helping forward-thinking property management companies get ahead of where the market already is and certainly where it's going. And I think there's only a few ways to do that. And it's really by taking lessons from other industries about specializing their people, more effective use of time, resources, and using automation and AI to get ahead.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thanks, Lucas.